All right, let's dive right into a fascinating musical mystery. It's a story about a hidden connection between two worlds you'd probably never think to put together: the sacred chants of the Byzantine Empire and the mystical music of Anatolian Sufis.
So picture this. In one corner, you've got the very solemn, very sacred chants you'd hear in a Byzantine Orthodox church. And in the other corner, a completely different vibe. It's the ecstatic, swirling music of Anatolian Sufism, or tasawwuf, music that's literally designed to bring on a spiritual trance. One is pure Christian orthodoxy, the other is deeply rooted in Islamic mysticism. I mean, on the surface, these two couldn't possibly be more different.
So you gotta ask, what could they possibly have in common? How could two traditions from different faiths with such wildly different sounds have any kind of shared history? Well, that is the puzzle we are going to unravel.
Now, our first clue isn't where you might expect. It's not in the sound itself, but in the actual blueprint of the music.
You know, it's really easy to get caught up in the surface differences and just stop there. But the real connection, the secret, is buried in the underlying structure, the very way they thought about building a melody. It's kind of like discovering that a sci-fi author and a romance novelist were secretly using the exact same grammatical rules to write their books.
And here's the heart of it. In Byzantine music, melodies are constructed from a set of patterns called echoes. Think of it as a musical toolkit. Now get this, in Anatolian music, they use an incredibly similar toolkit called maqams. They're essentially the same concept. Both are sets of melodic formulas, the fundamental building blocks that composers use to put their sacred music together. It's like they were working from two parallel instruction manuals.
Okay, so they share a way of building music. That's fascinating for sure. But you might be thinking, couldn't that just be a coincidence? Well, maybe. But the connection actually goes so much deeper than just music theory. It goes all the way into philosophy.
Which brings us to their shared philosophy, the big idea behind why they were creating this art in the first place.
See, today we tend to celebrate the artist as a unique genius, right? An innovator creating something brand new. But in both the Byzantine and Sufi worlds, the artist's role was totally different. They weren't supposed to invent something from their own imagination. No, their highest calling was to act as a mirror, reflecting something much, much bigger.
And what were they trying to reflect? This concept of divine beauty. Both of these cultures shared a belief in a perfect, celestial reality, an ideal world of pure truth. And the whole point of art, whether it was a hymn or an icon, was to capture a tiny glimpse of that perfection and bring it down to earth. It was a tool to help people connect to the divine.
The historian Egon Welles put it perfectly. He explained that the artist was seen as a channel, a conduit. Through a state of divine inspiration, they could transmit a reflection of that celestial beauty into their work. So you see, they weren't the source of the beauty. They were just the lens that helped focus it for everyone else.
So, let's just take stock here. We've got parallel musical toolkits and a shared mission for what art is even supposed to do. The question just got a lot bigger. Where did this powerful shared idea actually come from?
To find the answer, we have to travel back in time. Way back to find a common intellectual ancestor.
And here's the real twist. The root of all this isn't religious, it's philosophical. We have to look past the church, past the mosque, all the way back to the great thinkers of ancient Greece.
And check out the journey this idea took. It all starts with Plato, who first came up with this concept of a perfect, ideal world. Centuries later, a group of philosophers called the Neoplatonists, a guy named Plotinus being a key figure, took that idea and said, hey, art's purpose is to be a reflection, a copy of that perfection. From there, the idea split. One branch was adapted directly into Byzantine Christian theology, and at the same time, another branch traveled right into the Islamic world, where philosophical schools wove it into the mystical beliefs of tasawwuf. It's the same intellectual DNA, just branching in two different directions.
But how on earth did one philosophical idea find its way into two completely different religions? Well, the answer comes down to one thing: geography.
We're talking about Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. And for centuries, this region was a massive cultural melting pot. Now here's the crucial part. Christian monasteries in places like Syria and Iran were busy preserving and translating all this ancient Greek philosophy. They translated it into Syriac, a language that's very, very similar to Arabic. And because of that, all these Greek ideas became easily accessible to Islamic scholars. So Anatolia became this perfect mold, as the source material calls it, where Greek philosophy got mixed with both Christian and Islamic thought. It was just the perfect environment for this to happen.
So let's bring all these threads together. What does all of this actually mean?
Well, here's the big takeaway. The musical similarities between Byzantine liturgy and Anatolian Sufi music are not a coincidence. They're not just similar. They are two distinct branches that grew from the exact same philosophical root, a root that's buried deep in ancient Greek ideas about beauty, reality, and the purpose of art.
Ultimately, this whole story is just a powerful reminder that when you really look beneath the surface of culture and religion, you often find these incredible, profound connections. As the author of our source material so beautifully says, the themes uniting us are much more and stronger than the themes separating us.
And that really leaves us with something to think about. This hidden harmony was found in music and philosophy. It makes you wonder, in a world that so often focuses on what makes us different, where else can we find these deep, unheard harmonies, if only we really know how to listen?